In the summer of 1993, a film by the name of Cliffhanger found its way out into theaters across North America. It starred Sylvester Stallone as a search and rescue ranger in the Rocky Mountains. After a mid-air heist goes wrong, some bad guys show up and decide to make your life difficult. I genuinely enjoyed the movie, and once I saw a video game was planned for it, I was curious to see how it turned out. Unfortunately, Malibu Interactive, of Batman Returns infamy, was behind the development, and that meant you had to be very careful with your expectations. The reviews came in rough, with most magazines savaging just about every aspect of it. The writing was on the wall, avoid this turd at all costs. But then I saw it was also coming to the Sega CD, and man, I loved my Sega CD. I adored it, in fact. That meant I had to try it and see for myself what it was all about. I had visions of extra content, improved music, better sound effects, and of course some hardware scaling that looked like it was straight out of the arcade. In this episode, we are going to go over Cliffhanger for both the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD, talk a bit about their differences, and see if they're worth playing today. I've got a lot to say about these two, so let's get started. The story in the Genesis version is conveyed through comic book-like panels and scrolling text. It follows Stallone as he recovers the money and deals with the various bad guys from the film. It's serviceable and gets the job done. The Sega CD version uses full motion video sequences to tell the story, and it uses a lot of it. In fact, if you've never seen the film, it does a fairly decent job summarizing it so you know what's going on. It also has an additional story mode you can watch that covers much of the opening from the movie. Gameplay is that of a tried and true side-scrolling beat-em-up. Well, at least most of the time. Stallone can run, jump, climb, punch, and kick. The standard combo is a series of 4 punches that ends in an uppercut. Your kick combo is a series of high and low kicks. Punch and kick together performs your super kick. Hold kick and jump together, and you block melee attacks. Every so often you will also come across weapons in the form of knives and machine guns. These can assist you in taking out the bad guys a bit easier. The beat-em-up gameplay is interrupted often by climbing segments where you must avoid things like enemies trying to shoot you, falling snow, and rocks being thrown at you. There are also platforming segments baked into many of the levels. It starts simple with bottomless pits, but then graduates to moving wood and water, enemies on the platforms you need to land on, and caves that send ice and bats your way as you try and traverse the area. The avalanche sections are very different between the two versions. On the Genesis, it's a simple side-scrolling running segment where you must stay ahead of the snow. On the Sega CD, you actually get 2 stages involving the avalanche, and you escaping on a snowboard. This takes advantage of the hardware scaling feature and is done by the same programmer that did the driving segments for Batman Returns. Your heads-up display is at the top of the screen and has your score, your life bar, and the life of your enemies and bosses. It also shows you how many shots you have left with the gun and your remaining lives. Despite what the back of the box says for the cartridge version, this is firmly a one-player game. There is no multiplayer of any kind. The visuals of Cliffhanger are mind-numbingly plain. While I can't say anything here is awful, the vast use of repeated assets across every level grows boring quickly. These assets mostly consist of snow, rocks, trees, and a handful of palette-swapped enemies and bosses. So unbelievably mundane is this presentation that I was convinced it had to be on a 4 megabit cartridge. Nope, this sucker was 8 megabits. Though you'd never know by what's on display. There's 1 megabit Master System titles that have more variety than this. On Sega CD, the core experience is identical, with only the full motion video and scaling levels adding anything of note. The thing is, even the scaling sections fail to add any real weight to the experience because there are only 2 of them. It's genuinely hard to believe that with so many 16-bit games looking as great as they did by 1993, this is the best Malibu Interactive and their publishers at Sony ImageSoft could come up with. While I was reading about this game, I found out that it was built using the same engine that powered X Mutants, which was released the previous year. I found that surprising considering that game has a lot more variety in its special effects, stages, enemies, and the overall design. Cliffhanger was clearly done with either incredible time constraints, budgetary restrictions, or both. So plain and uninspired are these graphics, I'd say it ranks right up there with some of the weakest looking software that generation. Sound is the one area where I thought the Genesis and Sega CD versions would be a night and day experience. The cartridge uses the GEM sound driver and is surprisingly pleasant. Heck, I'd go so far as to call it good. The CD uses Red Book audio inspired by the film and has improved sound effects, but I found that it didn't fit the atmosphere nearly as well. The CD music is more cinematic, of course, but otherwise I found the chiptunes won this area convincingly. Let's get a couple of examples so you can hear it for yourselves. Good God, man, I don't know where to start with how much I hated this game. Every version of it. While you can learn the simple beat-em-up gameplay well enough, it's never interesting or fun, and the repeated stage sections have you doing the same thing over and over the entire way. Fight a bit, climb a bit, platform a bit, rinse, wash, repeat. But while you are spending time adjusting to all of that, the cheap deaths come fast and often. I can't tell you how often I'd fight my way through the enemies, only to have climbing and platforming sections burn through my lives like a hot knife through butter. You have continues, but it's right back to the beginning of the stage to do it all over again if you use them. Even worse, the blocking mechanic is useless in every way possible. Weapons, of course, go right through it, but melee attacks still do damage even when blocked. A completely atrocious turn of events since enemies do not have the same weakness. Many of those enemies can also stun lock you into place as they wail away, decimating your life bar. If things had been fun and well developed otherwise, that wouldn't have been a deal breaker. You could have slogged through, learned the patterns and placements, and still had a bit of fun. But spending more time with this is not my idea of fun at all. Add in the cheap hits from off-screen enemies, bosses that hit you as soon as you appear after losing a life, and hit detection issues, and this is a piss-poor adventure start to finish. While the extras of the Sega CD version prove to be interesting in the short term, you quickly lose interest in that version as well. The full motion video is a one and done kind of thing, and the scaling sections are incredibly difficult. For all my criticisms, however, I found even worse versions of Cliffhanger on the 8-bit consoles like the NES, Game Boy, and Game Gear. Compared to those stinkers, the Genesis and Sega CD versions were masterpieces of game design. Does that make them something to seek out and play in 2026? Absolutely not. All these games were substandard and well below even the most optimistic expectations. The real crime here was that the Sega CD version could have had more stages, more enemies, and different design aspects to take advantage of the platform. All that space on the CD goes unused for anything of substance. This didn't need to be a full redesign like the Terminator to be better, it just needed something, anything to add some fun and replay value. I would have settled for a few more scaling stages with a more even spread in their difficulty, even if they were simple snowmobile or helicopter-based vehicle affairs that broke away from the movie script. Instead, I was beating up the same 4 bad guys for 30 minutes, falling into water and holes over and over. And who can forget dangling helplessly on the side of cliffs while enemies shoot and throw things at you? I was even privy to a 10-foot tall John Lithgow Hulk that wrecked me dozens of times. Cliffhanger is the worst kind of game, a cash-in tied to a bigger property that gives its customers nothing to be excited about. During the 8 and 16-bit eras, licensed games, particularly of the movie variety, received quite the reputation as being must-miss software. I can honestly say it was deserved, and games like Cliffhanger did nothing to help that reputation. Even when there was an opportunity to expand and improve the experience on a platform like the Sega CD, shockingly little was done to take advantage of it. Like so many before it, Cliffhanger slapped a CD soundtrack, some full motion video, and some simple scaling levels to justify its existence. It wasn't enough to take this boring and lackluster ride to the next level, and pretty much every publication back then agreed. Whether it was US, European, or beyond, critics would rise up globally to shun this mess and do their best to steer gamers away from it. It isn't necessarily that Cliffhanger is fundamentally broken in any one area. It's more a case of extreme repetition, boredom, and cheap design elements, crushing any chance for you to enjoy it. Once you compare it to genre greats like Final Fight, Streets of Rage, or any of the dozens of other titles that do it better, you really start to wonder who this was aimed at. Even fans of the Stallion himself have better options in games like Rambo 3, Demolition Man, and Judge Dredd. If you find yourself with the choice, one of those will serve you much better. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.